So today I am joined by author and actor Cerise. Cerise, it's so lovely to chat to you today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just so looking forward to just like diving in and getting to know more about you and about this beautiful book that you've written, Little Love Letters to Single Mums. Is that
Uh-huh.
the correct title? Which is a beautiful name, and I think it just really does talk a lot about what the book is about. Even though I would say that it's not just for single mums, it's for mums alike. I think
Yeah.
you can every mum has that universal language, so I think
Mhm.
that's great, and we'll talk about that. How did the idea of writing this book come about?
There isn't one answer to that question, actually. It kind of popped out of nowhere. So it didn't start off as a book. This is what I say to most people when they ask me. It started off as a bunch of a bunch of thoughts in the notes section of my phone. So I don't know if you or anyone else can relate. Sometimes if I have like thoughts, I kind of journal, right? But I don't always have time to put pen to paper. I just put finger to keypad and I just type in the notes section. So that's how it started. Um, and then it kind of developed into a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to share on Instagram for an Instagram post. And then it just got longer and bigger and bigger. And then it turned into a blog post. And then I had the idea to put it in a book.
Like, how long did it take you to write this book? Because obviously, I know you had ideas. I mean, when you're writing the ideas, were you thinking, "Oh, this will make a great book"?
Yeah, I was journaling. I was literally just getting thoughts and feelings out of me. And you journal to do that, right? It makes you feel better. It's a type of therapy, just writing things down. So that's what it started off as. I had no intentions of putting it in the book when I first started. And as for how long it took, I'd say when I had the idea to put it in a book, that was around August 2024. So yeah, and I finished writing, I'd say December.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Wow,
so
so just a
yeah,
few months.
it's just a few months. Yeah, it's just a few months. But even though I say I finished writing, I don't know because this is my first book, but I don't believe that any writer really finishes writing. There's always more. Like every single day, you have like another idea or another sentence that just drops into your mind. So I think it comes to a point where you decide, okay, this is done now. It's done, and then you have another idea. But there's only so many ideas that you can have that will go in, and you've got to slow down at some point.
What is amazing that you have mentioned this, it is your first book. Have you had ever written anything before?
So most of my writing really I'd say were in blog posts. So I used to have a blog called CC's Latest. This was around, when was this? Maybe 2011, I want to say, 2010, 2011. And I'd share all my journeys and adventures as an actor. When I'd go to the theatre with my friends, I'd blog about that. When we did a show, I'd blog about that. If we decided we were to do a YouTube series, I'd blog about that. And then I took a break from blogging, and then I had a family. I started having children, and then I started writing again in 2000. And when was this? 2018. And I started a new blog called With Love CC, and that was in collaboration with my YouTube channel. But every now and then I would just write a blog post about something new that I learned in life. I'd just recently turned 30, and I realized that I didn't know a lot. Not that I wasn't smart, just I just came to like this new realization that wow, like life is actually long and the world is huge, and I feel like I'm just growing up. I feel like I'm just learning. So that blog was more dedicated to just my journey and discovering.
So you have
Yeah.
three little kids.
Uh,
Where on earth do you find the time to write a book? That is what I would like to, like, from mum to mum. Where do you find the time?
Again, there's no one answer to that question. Just wherever you can squeeze anything in. So, for example, um, if I was breastfeeding, I know aesthetically it looks really cute to write a book at your laptop and be typing. I would just be typing in the words app on my phone while I'm breastfeeding, or when I put all the kids to sleep, instead of going to sleep, I would type. To be honest, even if I should have been washing the dishes or doing the laundry, I would type. Just any small moment that I got, I would use that to write.
I mean, what you do so well is that when you're reading this book, it is like you're talking to your big sister or your little sister or your best friend. You know, you make it so personal. You have this thing throughout your book where you call everyone sis. And I love that because I think it really does show your personality. And even with the little antidotes that you have, like I believe there's one chapter where you're talking about, you know, trying to get the kids ready and it takes so long to leave the
Oh,
house, or
yeah.
you know, every mum can relate to that, or even just like going to A&E, you know, rushing your child to A&E because they've cut their finger or they've got like,
uh,
what mum cannot relate to just being in an absolute panic mode, having to rush your child to A&E? So it is so relatable. What would you say that you want readers to take away from your book?
is validation, because I feel like whether you're single or married or in a relationship, motherhood can be really isolating. I've done it both ways. I've done it married and I've done it single. And it could be a really isolating time. You can feel like you're on your own, and nobody gets it and no one else is going through this chaos. Um, but when you feel validated, when you know that someone understands and someone's going through the exact same thing, you feel this type of comfort just knowing that someone gets it. Just not reading the pages and seeing what looks like your life, it feels comforting. And I know that because when I was writing, I did a little bit of research, right, just so that it could be relatable. Whenever I'd see reels or posts about motherhood that I could relate to, and these are posts from people halfway across the earth, people I've never met before, people whose lives and families look very different from mine. But if I read something that I could relate to, it just felt so validating and so comforting. And it could have been about me. It could have been me that wrote it, but it wasn't. So I think that's my number one thing that I want people to really take away when reading the book is, me too.
Mm,
Oh, you get it.
mm.
I feel like you are my sis talking to me, and you know exactly what my day to day is like. I really want people to feel comforted in that.
I think that's like so beautiful, and obviously, like I reading this book, you do get quite personal, and obviously being a single mum yourself, you know, you this is coming from a relatable experience. Like, how did it feel writing about some things? Obviously, and I have noticed that obviously you touch little bits on your life and
Mm-hmm.
your children.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't go in super deep. Like you know, you have some books where they're like, yes, and you know, and my ex did this, and then that happened, and
Yeah.
I've noticed that you're very careful with
Uh-huh.
how you write. So you kind of put a little bit, but not too much. Was that
Yeah.
a cautious decision to do that to make sure that you weren't kind of giving away too much personal information about yourself?
100%. 100%. That was very intentional. The book is about just inspiring and comforting mothers, single mothers. It's not about bashing anyone. It's not about pointing the finger. It's about just validating your experience and your feelings, because they are important. It's about uplifting mothers and nothing else. So yeah, I was very intentional about the language I used when referring to my personal life and mixing it with the personal lives of other women.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a very deliberate mix, I'd say.
Were you tempted at all to get like, did you ever like write something down, be like, actually, no, I don't really want to say
Yeah,
this?
of course, yeah. Especially when I was journaling and when it was in my notes, and before I wrote everything. You get everything out. It's healthy to get things out, but it's also healthy to throw it away once it's out. Um, yeah, so it was very important that I didn't put too much of my personal experience in the book, and I did at first, and then I took it out. And then I had two endings actually. I shared my testimony right at the end of the book the first time round, and then I also wrote an alternative ending, which is also my testimony, but a little bit more generalized, just not too much. Because I mean, it's important to tell your story, but also it's important to not tell too much, especially when it concerns your children and it concerns your family and things like that. I didn't think it was important to tell everything. So
Yeah, and I think it's very tempting to do that. And we know a lot of books that have come out, and it's very kind of, this is my tell-all book, this is what happened to me in my
yeah,
life. But there is ways of still helping and empowering women without doing that, which I think you did,
exactly.
so beautifully. Write about how there is such a stigma
Mm,
towards single mums. And
mm-hmm,
what is very interesting about your book is that you don't know the situation why a person might be a single mum. Their partner might have passed away. They might have, been leaving an abusive relationship. But it
mm-hmm,
is like seen as kind of like a taboo of, oh, you're a single mum, oh, you don't have a partner.
yeah.
I remember there was one time where I went to the airport and I had my two kids with me and I wasn't with my partner and the woman was just looking at me and she's like, "Oh, so sorry. Oh, you look like you're really like," and was really feeling sorry for me. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But
Yeah,
even if I wasn't fine, it was kind of
yeah,
like this very pity, like, "Oh,
yeah,
look at her. Oh, she looks like she's struggling. Look at her
yeah.
playing with these two little kids." And I'm like, when I was reading your words, I'm like, yeah, it's so true. And I mean, what do you think is the reason why there is such a stigma on single mums and in this day and age?
I don't know what the reason is, but the fact that there is still a stigma in this day and age is shocking to me because I feel like there's so many variables to it. You're right. There's so many different reasons why women can be a single mother, but I believe that the reason doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the reason is. Um, there just needs to be less judgment. We should be enlightened enough as a society to know that self-righteousness is ridiculous, that we shouldn't judge, that we shouldn't stereotype, that we shouldn't marginalize. We just shouldn't do it. And I just think single motherhood is something, it's complex for lots of different reasons, but also it's something that I feel like it's something that we need to reframe the narrative. We shouldn't be looking at single mothers and pitying them. We shouldn't be looking at single mothers and judging them. We should be looking at single mothers and uplifting them and supporting them and praising them and just saying, wow, you're doing a phenomenal job. This is a job that's really designed for two people. And even with two people, it can be difficult, but you're doing the job of two on your own. You're amazing. Well done. Like that should be the narrative. That should be the thought that comes to mind, not poor or struggling or incapable or bitter or dramatic or baby mother or all these negative things that come to mind. Um, and and I think like halfway through writing really is when I I I thought to myself, I want this book to also be a fight back, a way of reframing the narrative. I want women to read it and not condemn themselves. I want them to be uplifted, but I also want other people to read it and maybe expose and draw out um, the stigma of themselves. I think a lot of us are guilty of it. Um, Not just with single motherhood, with lots of things. Sometimes we do hold these stigmas and stereotypes in our minds about a group of people. And it's probably maybe just socially embedded. Like, we don't even know where it comes from. It's there. And I think this is a good way of just uprooting
I
it.
think what is also very evident that comes through in this book was your faith. And obviously, knowing that you are a born again Christian, I love the example of you using the first single woman in the Bible, being Hagar, and just like, even when I was reading that, I was like, oh, yeah, she's right,
Yeah, yeah,
and there was single mums in the Bible.
yeah.
And yes, I understand that it's not always ideal, and you do mention it is a two-person job, but there are so many different reasons, and we're not here to judge those reasons.
No,
And you do use your faith a lot and your beliefs a lot in this book, and you say that your power and your strength comes from God. Was
exactly.
did you very much Was it again intentional to highlight your faith and to let women know that you are a woman of God and that you wanted to kind of basically shout out loud like, hey, I'm a Christian and I'm a single mum
Yeah,
and I'm doing my thing. I'm
yeah.
going about my life.
Honestly, at first, no.
Right, okay.
I honestly, I wanted this to be universal. And
Mm,
I thought, at first, I thought if I make this too much about my faith, maybe people who aren't Christians or people who don't classify themselves as born again Christians won't believe that they can relate to this or won't feel like it, it can relate to them. Um, but I really don't know how to do anything that matters without including my faith because without including my faith, without including God, it doesn't matter. But also, it's some single motherhood is something that I really struggled with because of my faith. I thought, I'm a Christian woman. I'm supposed to uphold these values. I'm supposed to be an example, right? I shouldn't be. I shouldn't have a divorce or I shouldn't be having a child outside of wedlock. And I really struggled with shame. And I think a lot of single mothers struggle with that, with embarrassment and shame aside from faith. But when you put faith in the mix, oh my gosh, I really struggled with it. I was so embarrassed. I thought people are going to think I'm a hypocrite. What you're supposed to be a Christian. What are you doing? And that's why I thought it's really important for me to include my faith in this book because yes, I am a Christian. Yes, I had a child out of wedlock. Yes, I also have a divorce. Yes, you probably look at me from the outside and think, what a mess. But yet still, I'm a child of God. Yet still, I'm capable because of God. Yet still, I am blessed because of God. It's not any decisions that I've made or mistakes that I've made that qualify me to be a child of God. I just am. And yet, I'm blessed. I'm blessed regardless. And my children are a blessing regardless. And they were created for a purpose regardless. And I was chosen to be their mother regardless. And I just want every woman who's a Christian or non Christian to read these words in the book and read these letters and know that whether they believe in God or not, regardless, they are still loved by God and they are still made mothers by God and they are still being empowered to do what they do every day by God.
Reading this book, it is very much your love letters to
Mm.
these mums. And I don't even want to just say single mothers, because as I said, I related to it. I know so many mothers out there that will read this and be like, yeah, I relate to this.
Yeah,
Because we've all gone through it. And there is
yeah,
times where, whether you're married or you're not married, there is times where you are alone with your children. Your partner, whether you're in a relationship, is not with you 24/7. And you do pick up on that in your
yeah,
book, saying that you can be a married single mum in the
yeah,
sense of perhaps your partner's away, maybe you're living apart, you might be traveling. So there's
yeah,
going to be times, evidently, that you as a mum will be by yourself with the kids. And how
yeah,
does that feel and how do you progress? I've even had it where my partner has been away and I haven't been there.
yeah,
Where I've been away and he's been there with the kids. So I'm sure even dads reading this, where they've had to be with the kids by themselves without their partner, can
yeah.
relate. And
They
even
get a glimpse of it.
they do. You get glimpses of it, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, what is going on?
Yeah. So this is what it's like.
It's a smack in the face. It really is.
Yeah.
You've done such a great job of just being so universal, where you can take away and be like, yeah, I can relate to this. So you don't have to be a single mother to read this or to buy this book,
No, you don't. You
which
don't.
is which I think is amazing. What you get in your book is you get reality. I think
Yeah.
sometimes even in the entertainment world, single motherhood can also be very, I guess, very romanticized or very much like a rom-commy, like, oh, there's this single mom and she's good looking and young, and then she meets this guy, and then and then
Mhm.
happily ever after.
Oh,
And
it's complicated.
it's complicated. It's
So
not always
complicated.
like that.
Oh, do it.
And that's what you get into the nitty-gritty. And there was one thing that you said in your book, and I actually even wrote it down because I was like, yeah, this would be very, very hard. You wrote in your book, you didn't plan to watch their hearts break when their dad didn't show up.
Mm.
And when I read that, I was like, ah, because
Yeah.
one thing we don't realize is we talk a lot about the mums, the mums, the mums. What about the children?
What about the
What
children?
about the kids?
Because you're talking about the letter, this wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
And it's quite a long letter, isn't it? And there's just, it's funny because we all have a plan. From childhood, we have a plan about what we want our lives to look like. And when we get to the age where it's time to execute that plan and it doesn't quite work out the way we planned, it can be heartbreaking. But that specific section that you're talking about, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many different ways that this happens with like the breakdown of a family, where sometimes there's co-parenting, sometimes it's completely solo parenting. But either way, it could be difficult for the children, right? If you're a solo parent and the child doesn't have their father around, that's detrimental. Full stop. It is. If you're co-parenting and the father is present, it still can be very complicated, you know. And there's all kinds of complex stuff that comes into play when you're doing that. But again, yeah, with that letter, I really wanted to highlight the ups and downs for the mother, the ups and downs for the children.
Do you
Yeah,
have a favorite letter? And if so, which one is it?
I would say my two favorite letters is the first chapter, Butterfly Metamorphosis, and the last chapter. The chapter before the last chapter, which is Phoenix Vibes. And I tried to start the book off in a way that's not specific to any particular struggle, right? But I speak about the butterfly's metamorphosis. And I spoke about this at my launch. A lot of us mothers have heard of the book, The Hungry Caterpillar, right? So if you didn't know how a butterfly is made, you'll know after reading that book. He eats through lots of cake and salamis and apple pies and all of that jazz. He goes from a tiny caterpillar to a really big fat caterpillar, goes into a cocoon, then becomes a butterfly. But when I studied the butterfly metamorphosis, I realized how complex it is and how painful it must be. If the caterpillar has any pain receptors, then that must be agonizing. And the butterfly doesn't actually build a cocoon, it builds a chrysalis, and which is a type of cocoon, but it's actually made from its skin. So the caterpillar skin starts to shed, right, and it becomes its cocoon. So the caterpillar is cocooned inside itself, and its organs are moved around and rearranged, and parts of its brain is digested, and then it grows the limbs, and then it's ready to be a butterfly. But that can take 3 weeks, or it can take months, and it's very dependent on its exterior and its exterior on its outer environment. And I just thought it's such a powerful analogy for how people grow through their lives transforming, really, and how people develop when they're going through difficult times, or whether it's trauma or heartbreak. But you can go from this really big, fat, ugly caterpillar dragging yourself along the ground to becoming this really beautiful butterfly that is regal and respected and loved and just beautiful and can fly and never touching the ground again. That's my favorite chapter in the book, because I feel like that's something anyone can relate to, no matter what it is you're going through. And then I say the phoenix vibes is very similar, right? Because the phoenix, even though it's not a real creature, it also symbolizes rebirth, much in the same way that the caterpillar does. So the phoenix, when it's coming to the end of its life cycle, it burns down into ashes. But soon after, those ashes kind of reignite, and it turns into another phoenix, right? But more beautiful and brighter than it was before. And there's scripture in the Bible, don't quote me, I don't remember where it is, but it speaks about the refiner's fire. And when we go through the fire, we won't be burned, right? If we go through it with God. And then there's also another book in the Bible that speaks about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who were in the fire, but they weren't burned, right? And then the phoenix is born from the fire, and sometimes fire can be the making of you. Some people get burned in it, some people are born from it. And so I'd say that those are my two favorite books.
What advice would you give to other single mothers?
I would say ignore the noise. Ignore the noise. dismiss and reject what society says about you because of your title. It's just a title. Um, I'd also say you don't have to be or regard yourself as a single mother. You're just a mother. Single is about your relationship status. Why does that matter? You do not have to adhere to anything negative if you don't want to. But if you want to help reframe the narrative, then fight back. Like, we do not have to accept what society says about us. We just don't have to. I also want to say you're amazing. Like, you're amazing. Like, everything that you do for your children with a smile on your face, whether you are sick, whether you are tired, you get up and you do it every day. Like, bless you. God bless you. Like, you're doing amazing. And there's a crown waiting for you for everything that you do and for everything that you've done. Your children, as they grow, they will be a testament of how amazing you are as a mother. Yeah, that's what I want to say to single mothers. God bless you. Just bless you.
And
Bless you.
you've reminded me, because you say in your book that there is no like name or for a married mum. Like, you're not known as, oh, you're the
No,
married mum. Oh,
no,
oh, hello, married mum. Like, it's just like,
exactly.
it's not a thing.
Exactly.
So, why do we have to put a label on,
Why do we
being
have to?
a single mother?
Why do we have to?
Do you have a favorite book, or do you have a book that inspired you?
Can I be honest? I'm not much of a reader. I'm not much of a reader.
Don't everyone.
That must seem so weird. I've written a book, but I don't really read books. I'm more of a movie type of lady and going to the theatre kind of lady. Like, I'm really inspired by real life and by things I see. Yeah, I'm a creative like that. But not necessarily a book, no. But there was a book in the Bible, Genesis, that inspired one of the chapters, what Aleph Hagar. I guess that's as close to a book as I can get.
When you were growing up, what kind of movies did you like? What inspired you?
Disney, all kinds of
Yeah.
Disney, like Cinderellas and the Pocahontas, and things like that really inspired. Because I knew I wanted to be an actress from when I was really young, and luckily my mum really supported that, and she put me into all kinds of different acting classes. I used to go to this place called the Oval House from when I was 11 years old. I was in year 7, and this really amazing lady, I've got to tell the story, this really amazing lady called Natasha came to do a workshop at my school in my drama class, and she gave us a bunch of flyers, and on the flyers it had all these different workshops that we could do at the Oval House, and there was this thing called Time Bomb where we could stay overnight. So in the day we'd be creating a play, and we'd be fed from the kitchen. We'd have a shower in the changing rooms, and we'd sleep in our sleeping bags in the theatre. And then we'd wake up the next day, finish off the play, and then in the evening our parents would come and watch. And I was going to the Oval House Theatre from the age of 11 till I'd say maybe 27, 28. Like, that was my place. It's closed down now. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't.
You refurbished, hasn't it? It's like,
yeah, and it's moved to Brixton. It's now called the Brixton House. It's a little bit different.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit different. But that place was my inspiration for everything that I wanted to do in my life. That's where my love for acting really grew and developed, and writing and everything, and creating.
I love that. And obviously you touched on, being an actor as well. And obviously, what's interesting? I would love to see this made into a movie, because you have things like Think Like a Man, which was very much, I guess, the woman's guide to how men think. And it became a whole narrative.
And that was a book first, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a book. It was a book.
Yeah,
And obviously didn't have characters in it. There was no, it was literally just Steve Harvey writing his thoughts of what he believes women should do when they date men. That was the whole premise of the book.
Yeah.
Did you see your book being turned into a potential movie, a potential TV series?
See, this is how God works, because this is the second thing you've said in this interview that somebody else has said to me. So someone else said to me at the launch on Saturday during the Q&A, would you turn this into a film? And I said, of course. And you're saying this now, and the answer is 100%. I could definitely see this being turned into something on the screen. Yeah,
definitely. And
definitely.
I've got obviously dibs on leads and
100%. Claim your character now.
So
Claim your
I'll be
chapter.
the loudmouth one. Whatever heretic, I'm just the loudmouth one. So
Just
I've
claim
got
your
this.
chapter. Tell me, I'll pencil it in.
But I can see it happening. I mean, it could
Yeah.
go so in so many different directions. So I definitely, I would put that on the back burner. Maybe think about
Yeah.
getting into screenwriting. I can see
Oh,
that.
100%. Sounds good. Sounds good.
So I mean, this has been so great catching up with you. I can literally
Thank
talk to you
you.
forever
I
about
know.
this book and about how amazing it's been. I've actually forgot to ask you, what was your process of actually just getting the book published? Because I know a
Mm,
lot of people would just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write a book. But
yeah.
how would you even begin to think about like how to publish it and get it printed?
Yeah. So there are so many different ways, right? But as an, I want to say amateur, but I'm not an amateur anymore. I started out as an amateur, and this is a golden piece of advice. You know what? It depends very much on what's best for you. But I printed with Amazon, so Amazon have a publisher called Kindle Direct Publishing (KDP), and they're an amazing group to publish with, especially if you're just starting out. They don't take anything up front, right? So if you're an independent author and you're publishing independently, sometimes they'll take a massive chunk of money up front, and they might put your books wherever. But if you're publishing with Amazon, they don't ask for anything up front. But with all the money that you do make from the sales of your books, they take out the printing costs, and they take out their little chunk too. Um, but you are entitled to buy author copies, in which you only pay for the printing cost, and then you charge whatever you want for your books, if you sell that way. So there are pros and cons, but I do think if you're just starting out and you want to put a book out there, it could be a good way to do it. You just have to be willing to put the work in, to market it, to promote it, because of course there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who take this route. And if you really want to make sales and you want the hard work that you've put into the book to be seen and read by people, you do have to put in the work to push it. But I'm not a believer in gatekeeping, and I don't even remember how I came across this information. I can't tell you how I came across it, but no one told me. No one shared this with me. But I do think it's an amazing route to take if you're just starting out, and you even just want to see if you can write a book and see how it does. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that information because I think a lot of people will just be like, oh, I have an idea, but I just don't even know how
Yeah.
I would begin to come about it. And a lot of people don't share this information. I don't think it's very well known. So thank you
No.
for sharing
Yeah.
that with
Of
the
course.
viewers, and maybe they'll like, you inspire someone to print and publish their book. And
Exactly.
speaking of your book, obviously, before you leave us, we are going to give away two free copies for those
Oh,
lovely people watching us right now. There it is. Look at that. And it's I mean, so many more questions. How did you even come up with the graphics and I love the little pictures. You have like little illustrations
yeah,
in your
I
book, which is
do.
so, look at that.
Little
Oh,
illustrations that match the chapter.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So we will give out the information, but we are giving away two free copies of this book to two very, very lucky, blessed winners. So we will let you know how you can win these books. Please follow us on Instagram, follow Cerise, follow the Little Love Letters to a Single Mother. We have its own Instagram page, but all of the information will be
Mhm.
out there. But make sure you have a chance of winning a free copy of this fantastic book.
Yes.
So I will say good evening to you, Cerise. It's been so lovely catching up, and thank you
Thanks,
for
Emma.
just sharing your world with us and your book and all the
Pleasure.
best in the future.